everyone, Ivy Gaming here, and today we're playing Dragonheir Silent Gods. For today's video, I'm going to do a how to build your DPS video to go along with my how to build series. Alright, and this is the third and last video of the series. It's kind of the most in-depth, but it's probably the one I actually am going to talk about in more the shortest, quickest TLDRs that I can because it's so involved. And it's like every category of type of hero, DPS style-wise, could have its own video. I already did a video on healers and tanks as well. Our defensive units, our support units, and sometimes our defensive units are also healers, so there's some discussion there. If you haven't already watched those videos, go ahead and do so as well. But for this video, we're going to talk about all the different types of DPS, which in this game includes support. So don't be confused by the word support as being just people to help your team. It also are people that do some really big damage and help to hinder your enemy. Like with an attack penalty or something. It doesn't mean necessarily they're only going to be your healers and buffers and damage mitigation or something. It means more than that. So pretty much everything except defense I'm going to check because we have our unique types of DPS in this game also on top of the support units, which are Wild and Burn, Frost and Ice Blast, Dauntless and Thunderbolt, and Rally, Summons, and Poisoners. So this video is going to cover Season 1 and Season 2 conversation, as well as a quick discussion about the gear from both seasons. So I'm going to kind of go through each type and give examples of how to build them, honestly, and talk about stats. So, oh boy, this is just such a big category. So why don't we start with the top, the fire people, right? Or so we pick a support as a good example. Let's pick a support hero that's also a DPS. How about we go with our favorite epic? One of our favorite epics. Let's go with Zarloth. He's a good conversation starter because he is support, but he actually hits pretty hard and can be really useful. He's got a fear here. He's got a damage over time kind of for 5 seconds with multiple attacks. He's got crowd control. He's got 2 AoEs. He's great for farming goblin. He also brings heal. He brings a little bit of everything. And he is a fun one. So when it comes to a typical, I guess, damage dealer, we're looking for the obvious. Crit rate, crit damage, and attack. But someone like Zarloth or Voresh or Gulend, his fancy big brother, they kind of need some other stuff too. Like you're going to need accuracy to land, your recharge, speed penalty, your fears, your anything that's red or purple, you need accuracy for. So if you're not sure about that, just click the stats here and you can get the descriptions on what things mean. But pretty much when it comes to crit rate, you are trying to get 100% crit rate or very close to it at least. You can get away with less for people that have more chances to hit on their ultimates, but you tend to want to, I mean, personally, I'm always aiming for above 80. Ideally above 90% crit rate and trying to hit that 100 when I can. But you kind of want to scale heavily with attack in this game. I do know that attack is very important for damage. I do think crit damage is a little bit stronger for Vortex, where attack is a little bit better everywhere else. Kind of like other games I play like Watcher, and I think even Raid might be the same way. I don't remember, it's been so long. But for the sake of Watcher, it's kind of similar. You really do want strong attack focus before you go too crazy in your crit damage. Because you got to have something to scale off for those multipliers. So yeah, crit damage affects the bonus damage when the hero deals a critical hit. The critical hit chance to hit does a significant increased. Is it 1.5%? Is it 2% damage? I'm not sure, honestly. I think it's 1.5 times the damage, I think, when it crits. Because it's definitely not double the damage. I've based on watching crits fail. But I'm not sure the exact number. So again, other examples of support DPS. might be Goom. He would use him as damage too in a lot of content, but he's also bringing some crowd control and debuffs. So he's another one, just like Gulend and Zarloth and Voresh is my best examples, where you kind of want a little bit of everything, but you can still pump them full of crit rate and be surprised at how much damage they can do. So don't underestimate that. Or if you're doing something like Goblin and you're not concerned with the debuffs that you're landing or the crowd control because you're just trying to smash, just go full smash, 100% crit rate, go with crit damage elsewhere, and attack percent wherever you can get it. I'm going to continue talking about the stats now, as far as what some of the different types need before I go into the actual gear and artifacts. So we'll get to the gear in a few minutes. So next up we have Burn. We have new Burn heroes in the game. Karf is our legendary Burn hero, not an that's not a big fancy exclusive like Askethis, but he's pretty cool. So he actually scales with Enlightenment as well as attack. So, and he does a lot of derivative damage here with his passive, which kind of reminds me of some of the others, right? If you think about it, there's people that are like this with, like, I think Shalter actually, but Flora, Vikana, the Poisoner, she has that as well, where a lot of her attacks are based on Enlightenment and attack, and then you want to land the debuff of Burn, which means you need accuracy. Of course, with the derivative damage, again, you need even more Enlightenment. But that doesn't mean you can't crit. And some of these heroes like him, eventually the end game goal is to also give them crit rate. So you could, in the meantime, use something like, oh, here, I don't know, it's a small amount, but you could use the Ink Vial on some of these people that have derivative damage, especially passives, where in the meantime, they can't crit because maybe you don't have the kind of stats to give them a ton of Enlightenment and attack and crit rate on top of it. But once you get later in the game and you really have options for your equipment, we're going to want to give this guy some crit rate, and we're going to want to give him attack, and we're going to want to give him Enlightenment. So you would not use something like the Ink Vial on him there as an example. There's some other good damage dealers. I know my other Alliance member really suggested using Arachis? I think it's Arachis if we go Latin languages besides English. So he's apparently a pretty strong DPS because, well, he does a solid hit here, and then for every stack of burn, if they're really well stacked up with burns, he deals additional damage for every stack. That can probably add up quite a lot. It doesn't say it's capped, but we know that burn stacks themselves are capped. They can go up to 10. So technically, if there is a stack of 10 burns on someone that he attacks, he can do 2,200% attack damage on top of this 400. Technically, I don't know if the stacks ever get that crazy, but it sounds like that's amazing potential. So with that in mind, you would build someone like this that has amazing damage potential, even though they're burn. You might not even worry about giving him accuracy. You might just make sure other people are the ones applying the burn, and he's just built as pure damage. Crit rate, crit damage, attack, boom, just smash. And then, yeah, if you happen to get some accuracy in his kit otherwise, great. Maybe you can get just enough accuracy to land some burns yourself. He does have a chance to place burn with his passive, which is pretty solid. Every time a basic attack, it goes up to 40% chance to inflict a burn. But I think you really want to do whatever you can to make sure that this ultimate is really going to smash. And I think the battle skill sounds pretty solid as well. He is melee though, so he's probably pretty squishy, and you're going to want to make sure you have good healing and support around him to keep him alive. But sounds like, excuse me, there's great damage potential. I just want to give a shout to him because my guild mate, or my alliance mate, whatever, did suggest that he's actually the best DPS, like pure DPS, if you don't have Askethis, the one who has the exclusive. All right, so there with burn, obviously you need accuracy, you need enlightenment because that's how it's based, derivative damage, and you also just wanted to call out that the Zarax and the rare as well, where is he? Begs, are also good enablers for burn, which is kind of how you're going to go with the other types of units. So like here, poison units. Poison is another one that actually does scale with derivative damage quite a lot. A lot of these heroes are based with derivative damage, and some of them are going to be really strong appliers. Dench is someone who can pump out a ton of poisons, so you really want that accuracy on him. You can go for the focus of enlightenment, attack, and accuracy on him and save the crit rate for someone else that is going to smash harder. Someone like an Eli, or let's go up here to our epics. Olas is a very strong poison damage dealer. And keep in mind, this game is a little bit confusing. When we say poison, we do mean the debuff sometimes, or sometimes you just mean the synergy. I wish they would call the debuff something else like toxic, because it can be a little bit confusing having a poison hero, but then like Sigrid is a poison hero, but she doesn't apply poisons. So keep that in mind as well. Speaking of which, Sigrid is probably our best example of a support hero that does amazing damage, right? So you're going to build Sigrid with accuracy to land her debuffs and make her smash. And Olas is a good example of a poisoner who kind of needs all the things, just like eventually how you want to build, you know, Karf or other DPS that you still want accuracy on. Excuse me. So he is going to trigger poisons, do an explosion, and he'll boom, boom. All right, cool. He's also going to have this poison bomb thing here with extra and chances of inflicting extra stacks of poison. So he's going to be a good enabler as well. And then, wait, sorry, when he deals damage to an enemy under poison, every stack increases his crit rate. So you can actually build him with a little bit less crit rate if you know you have good poison damage dealers in your team. Someone like a Shink is really cool because they ignore defense based on how many stacks of poison. So this is the kind of people like this that do more damage like when the enemy's under poison. Those, not Garion. Those are the people that you really want to put the crit rate on, put the crit damage on, as well as maybe accuracy and attack and a little enlightenment as well. It's just that poison and burn are the most complicated for this game because they need everything. They're very stat hungry. And so I think they're the hardest ones to build. And I would not suggest that most people go that route unless it's like your final team you're building for all the different synergies, because the gear is just going to be tough. Let's pop on up to our other poisoners here, like our legendaries. Vicana is one that like sounds like she should be the Flora of poisons, where everything about her is enlightenment up, passive, blah, blah, blah. Inflicting poisons, great, she can apply them. And then she does extra derivative damage within range, blah, blah, blah. Lots of confusion here. But if you really do want to make Vicana smash, she's kind of going to be like Karg as a good example, or Karf, sorry, where you might not put a ton of crit rate on her at first because you're just struggling to get the stats. But really, the end game goals to make her actually hit hard is going to be to also give her crit rate on top of enlightenment and attack and accuracy. And, you know, it's just the way they are. They're kind of hard to build. Now, continuing on our enlightenment and, I guess, Flora topic, as I hinted at, Wild is a really great synergy in this game. Mostly single target damage focused. If they have a wild check, they do extra damage. It's really fun because it's not like a buff you have to worry about. You don't actually dispel it, you just have a wild check. But Flora is someone who really is about derivative damage. And luckily, she is one that you don't really need to put crit rate or crit damage on. So I'll give her as that great example of someone you can just go purely enlightenment and attack focused, and that's it. Just make her survive wherever the hell she is and you're good. Simple. She's one of the easiest to build, actually, which is wonderful, right? Because enlightenment attack, and that's kind of it. Everything you do for a team with Flora in it is about making Flora do more damage. So like she would be in Ink Vial or her exclusive artifact, of course, as well. But everything is about her ultimate, like derivative. She creates a vortex, and every time the target takes or has extra damage taken from wild procs, there's more derivative damage. So you really want to make sure you put up Flora's ultimate first and then everybody else after her to proc wild as much as possible while that vortex is there. And you want Flora to have a ton of enlightenment. Simple as that. It's really, really nice. Attack and enlightenment is really what you want, which cannot trigger crits, so she's a perfect candidate, like I said, for like the ink vial, which does do better than Harpy's nail, which also could help her little passive here, but definitely better for the ink vial. But I just want to touch on artifacts for specific people briefly, but we'll get into that a little bit better later. So also in Wild, of course, we have our free hero Erich. So Erich is a good example of someone that's just a typical damage build. For the most part, these Wild people are pretty nice to build as well, because you don't need accuracy or anything special to land it. And Flora just needs attack and enlightenment. But no one else needs enlightenment unless they actually say they do derivative damage. And when it comes to Wild. So Erich is just a smash. You just build him to hit hard. You just give him crit rate, crit damage, and attack, and hope he procs his Wild as much as possible, which he has a really nice passive that allows him to do so. It actually helps him have a higher probability to proc Wild. Let's give a couple other examples of Wild heroes in the form of our favorite lovely lizard lady Tunnelnon. She is a beast. She's so good. Her and Erich both have great ultimates that hit 5 times or whatever, so they're great for Witch's Remains. She also buffs herself before she attacks, which is really cool. And yeah, she can pump out serious damage, and she's really great to do so with Flora on the team as well. But her and Erich alone without Flora can be a pretty strong comp in a lot of single target boss battles. There's also some other Wild heroes, but like they're a little bit more quirky. Elfie is like a Wild enabler. He increases people's success rate of proccing Wild, but I haven't personally found myself loving him. I had more success using like Erich in my battle and not Elfie. And I also really love Foley. She just does a lot of damage herself. She has 3 hits here, and then she has multiple here. And she just, yeah, each successful check by allies increases the damage of her next basic attack and makes it Wild. So she's great again with like that nexus for Flora, or just being a part of a Wild comp where everyone benefits from each other proccing Wild. So Wild's a fun one, and again, for the most part, it's pretty easy to build. You're just going to be smash for the most part, except for Flora is like the exception to the rule. But there's some really great rares that also do Wild. Honestly, the rares are really strong. Netta, Thea, I've even heard Bronwyn is pretty great. But as rares, they're all very good for even just Vortex. But anywhere you're using a Wild team, very, very good heroes. Especially like Netta would be nice where you want a ranged unit instead of a melee unit, maybe. As example, where you might use her instead of Thea, depending on some of those Continental Challenge bosses. That's something to think about as well. All right, now let's move on in our categories. So we talked about poisons, we talked about supports, Dauntless. All right, I have Theraval. But mostly what Dauntless is all about is how often they use their basic attacks. Like launching lots of basic attacks or their skills counting as basic attacks. Even Theraval's ultimate's not really a hit. He switches to a different stance. He increases his attack. His basic attack can trigger multi-shots, increases his crit rate, all sorts of fun, crazy stuff. Or, increases his chance based on his crit rate. But Theraval is a unique one in the sense where he can be like the only DPS, and he doesn't really need other heroes to do better because nothing about his kit is like when allies proc a base or do a basic attack. So he's really, really cool. Sutha is awesome because she actually has all of her attacks count as basic attacks, her battle skill and her ultimate, and she has a block revive, and she hits 5 times with her ultimate. So that all counts as basic attacks. Everything she does is basic attacks. So when you're trying to enable another hero that needs other allies to do basic attacks, she's really, really great for that. And Avelios is the strong example of that. And Velios is the Dauntless version of you want enlightenment on him. He's very good. Let's see here. He does have a good hit there, but this passive is crazy. When an ally launches a basic attack, the hero has a 10% chance of launching a follow-up attack dealing derivative damage. Dauntless heroes have double chance of triggering this effect. So every basic attack, so from all those other heroes that are just doing a ton of basic attacks, he's just pumping out a ton of derivative damage. So he's definitely one of those heroes that you can build in multiple ways. You can build him for the focus of enlightenment and have something like the Ink Vial or Harpy's Nail on him. But you could also build him to smack as well, because he does ignore 100% of the target's defense on his ultimate. So that's one of those that you kind of got to play with different builds and see what works best based on your comp, because it really depends on which heroes you have alongside of them. And he is definitely one that requires a good synergy with good heroes around him in order to be successful. So Dauntless is fun. A lot of them are just big smash, smash, smash. Obviously, like Sutha's all basic attack damage. And again, Dauntless is one that you don't need to worry about accuracy with. There's no debuff to place. So for the most part, except for someone like Avelios or Shalter, you're really going to be focusing crit rate, crit damage, attack, and then just survive wherever they are. Really simple, nice, basic damage dealer. Now we have a new Season 2 synergy again with Thunderbolt. So Thunderbolt here is like a trigger. So enemies inflicted with electrocute periodically cause lightning strikes, dealing damage to multiple enemies inflicted with electrocuted. So this is like kind of like a chain lightning type effect that's extra damage, and it does tend to scale. See, a lot of these really have enlightenment as a focus, because enlightenment is electrocuted deals derivative damage. So if someone is all about triggering electrocuted, you kind of need, or well, inflicting electrocuted, he's gonna need enlightenment. But guess what? What about his attack? He grants a big damage up, but then he does massive damage. Look at that damage. Boom. 4,600 enlightenment damage. So he kind of sounds like a complicated build as well, where you're going to go heavy enlightenment focus and accuracy to land electrocuted, but then at the same time, with such a big hit as a possibility, you're probably gonna want to crit as well. Enlightenment can, or damage based on enlightenment can crit, but the derivative damage that's dealt by like certain skills that say they do derivative damage that is boosted by enlightenment, those cannot crit. So it's a little bit complicated. I always got the impression that if something scales with enlightenment, you never make them crit, but that's actually not true. They could still crit. So this sounds like a massive attack, and he sounds like one that might be a bit stat heavy. I think Thunderbolt, Burn, and Poison are just very hard to build until you get really good gear with good options. But doesn't mean we can't have fun with them in the meantime. I'm sure going to try. Let's go on to our rally units. So, okay, I guess with Thunderbolt, I'm not going to really talk about the others. It is what it is. Same thing with Dauntless. I kind of mentioned them as we were going along as far as DPS goes. But Rally is huge. Filto's probably our king of Rally. Filito go boom, as Odd One says. He just smacks. He does like this extra... He hits it with 600%, but when he has Rally, he does 1,200% extra damage on top of that for 1,800% attack damage in one giant boom. And he recharges his ultimate energy to come back to it even faster. So he's just a massive damage dealer. Luckily, when it comes to Rally, it's also the kind of a thing where you don't need accuracy, you don't need enlightenment. It's just make people hit hard and do damage. So they're a little bit more easy to build as well because of that in mind. So Then there's people like Alton that are great enablers of rally. So like when a rally attempts to cast a skill that consumes rally, when a rally ally attempts to cast a skill that consumes rally, those with rally have a 50% chance of gaining 30% damage up for 10 seconds. Those without rally have a 50% chance to gain rally. So he helps to make sure people have rally on them. And if they already do, he gives them a damage bonus. So he's just a really cool hero as well. Really love it. Really interesting and really good enabler. Another really good enabler and damage dealer actually is Hegio. But like a lot of these epics and some of these synergies, I should say, are very melee focused, which can really struggle. Like Hegio's not going to be good in the season 2 chief challenges for the Ardeth battle again, which kind of sucks because he's so good. Hegio has this passive where there's a 50% chance of granting an ally, rally to an ally, rally to an ally, oh my god, rally to an ally, rally to an ally. It's so hard to say together. There's a 50% chance of granting rally for 10 seconds to a random ally after casting an ultimate skill. So he is a DPS that can smack, but he also is a good enabler for your whole team's synergy. So really, really fun. All right, last up, I guess we have our icy people to talk about. We have Ice Blast, our newest synergy and one of our favorites for Vortex. So this is just a whole bunch of people using their battle skills a lot. That's all. That's what it comes down to. So Sheena is a pretty solid DPS, but she's more an enabler, granting Ice Blast stacks to allies. Oh, Rally just killed me. So I'm gonna say the examples of building for these guys. Baldel is our exclusive. She is the best DPS in the game for Ice Blast and one of the best DPS in general for Vortex now. And she is going to be the one you just straight up, you're going to want to just build these guys to smash. Smash as much as possible. Simple enough. Crit rate, crit damage, attack, boom. That's it. Obviously skill haste to make people come back to stuff more often is fun sometimes, but they're pretty simple. Where Sheena is the one who helps add extra Ice Blast or Ice Crystals to allies to make them do more damage. And then Zorak is a little bit different, though. He does require Enlightenment. So he has derivative damage that he actually gains. He does extra damage. And then he actually, like, shares his passive to other allies. Oh my god, I really gotta put rally last on my list so I stop saying allies incorrectly. Anyway, he is a buffer and an enabler. You're not going to see Zorak being the one doing the main damage. It's not his job. He is there to enable your team, and he's different than Sheena. So I feel having Zorak and Sheena to enable Baldel is the legendary version of all that. The budget-friendly version would be having Garthen instead of Baldel, Bledin instead of Sheena, and then, yeah, that's kind of, that's it really, because the other ones don't really do buffs. Sadiq is okay, but not as top tier for just simple damage. And yeah, Bledin is does less damage than Garthen with a simple damage comparison. And the rare does not do as good either. But you can use Garthen in place of Baldel, and you're going to be extremely surprised at how powerful this chica is. She is a beast. She absolutely smacks. I'm having so much fun using her, and I kind of focus her battle skill for damage, of course, because she's using it so often. She has extra crit rate up on herself, and yeah, I mean, she can just not smash as hard as Baldel, but really close to it. You'll be really surprised. So luckily, when it comes to building Ice Blast heroes, they're like Rally, they're like most wilds. They just need to smash crit rate, crit damage, attack, focus as well. And then last but not least, we have our Frost heroes. I would say the stronger Frost heroes you guys know are obvious, wonderful, rare Usha. She hits very hard If she attacks when the enemies are under frost, she does massive damage. So she's a good one to not even worry about putting accuracy on. Just let other people put the frost on and have her go after them, and then she smashes. I would say the legendary version of Usha is Drist. I know the base version of Drist without extra stuff is about the same or less than Usha, unfortunately. But if you have some inspirations on him, he's really good. And fully skilled, he's really good. And I love using Drist. I have no regrets for building my Drist and spending money to get him maxed out. And he's kind of the same. He does inflict frost on his skills, but you could also have other people enable it more so and just have him built to smash. So Oster is one who can smash and be the enabler. He's probably one you kind of want to build with accuracy because he does have a 100% chance to inflict frost for 10 seconds with his ultimate, which is going to really help the whole team. But he also hits really hard. He's great. And he has a really nice, big, hard-hitting battle skill, ignoring 100% in defense as well. So Oster is fun, really strong hero. I think the best enabler when it comes to the legendaries is Losenia. She is someone who you could probably build her to attack, to have a little less damage and just make sure she has the accuracy and lots of skill haste to be the first one to go and be constantly pumping out this frost. Everything she does with her kit is all about applying frost, but she can do some pretty good damage. You might be surprised, but she's a great candidate for Witch's Remains because she's pumping out a ton of hits every few seconds. It's really great every second. So she's a really fun one for that. But yeah, that covers our quick overview of some of our DPS types in this game. Just again, don't be surprised. Oh, wait, summons. No, it doesn't. I forget they exist. I forget summoners exist because they're just not strong in this game. I think Premsa is one of our stronger summon heroes. The problem with summoners in this game is the summon units just don't survive most content. Like, you cannot take a summoner into Vortex unless it's just someone like Joyce that's gonna hit hard. But it's not, the summons are just gonna die with every smash and feel kind of pointless. So she's really good. I mean, people do like Lawanis, of course. Lawanis is, wait, where am I going? Lawanis is our exclusive version for the summoners, and she is very good. She does deal a lot of damage by sacrificing all the undead creatures. So she kind of does like a, like a sacrifice or an explosion of summons. So you want lots of summons in the team for her. She can do a ton of damage. She ignores defense. And she puts out some summons of herself or of her on her own. Very, very good hero as well. So epics are kind of weak for the most part for summoners, but I have heard I think JR said that Zadok and his passive, when an allied summon unit dies, recharges ultimate energy. So if Lawanis is constantly sacrificing summons, his passive actually can go really well. So he's pretty good about pairing with Lawanis, but he's not that great on his own. It's just a really weird, it's a weird synergy. And yet again, I'm sad that summoners are not going to be good for the the chief challenges like the UTR event this time around for season 2 with Ardreth, the lunar halo event. Summoners are just not going to be great for that either, unfortunately, because we're going against a Thunderbolt hero where they're just going to get chain lightning and the summons are just going to die. So not ideal there either, unfortunately. Maybe someday we'll have a reason to build summoners, but I don't think it is season 2. Oh, okay. Longer than I expected to even quickly go through the summons. Oh wait, I can't not. Hold on. And just a quick shout out, guys. Don't forget about the passives on these heroes. I'm sorry, not the passives, the auras on these heroes. Because there's some pretty impressive things. Like Tio is a summon unit who can just do pretty basic, solid AoE damage, great to use in Goblin with or without other summoners. But he also brings this. And all allies attack by 30%, the legendary version, in all battles. So someone like Tio can be pretty underrated. Not everyone that's part of a synergy like Summon, Rally, Wild, whatever, needs to be with their people to be good. He's still pretty solid even without having to sacrifice a ton of corpses, and you can take advantage of his aura at least. Now let's go on to gear discussion. So for our DPS units, it's pretty simple. The Grave of Venom sets are gonna be the way to go for the most part. You are going to love Emperor's Might here is a weird one. This one is definitely, I guess, more of an arena thing. Because when you're dealing damage to enemies with lower attack, then extra stuff happens. But that's not always going to be the case for bosses, I would assume. So not the best for bosses. We do have a set still for Enlightenment. That one is still here for Season 2. That one is derivative damage dealt by the wearer, ignores defense. So that's kind of cool. It gives a way to, like, not really crit, but kind of help the derivative damage dealers do a little extra something something. Oh, but the last set, the Emperor's Might, does bring you skill haste. And sometimes you're just going to be using two-piece sets, two different two-piece sets to get a ton of skill haste on someone to get their skill cooldown up to where you need to cycle through for an enemy like that 18-second bosses instead of a 20-second, for example. So you will still highly use that set. But alright, the other one that's fun is the new Inventor. So this is the attack with crit rate set, and this has every time the wearer casts a battle skill or an ultimate, they receive an 8% damage bonus for 15 seconds up to 4 times. The duration of each stack of the effect is calculated independently. So this is really good for our new Ice Blast heroes that are pumping out a ton of battle skills. You couldn't go really any better for that. And Gambler is the set that's also from Season 1. So this is the same set here where you can deal extra true damage. You have a 30% chance to deal true damage. Gambler is best on heroes that have ultimates that attack frequently. Or sorry, multiple hits. A multi-hit ultimate. Or a really good battle skill that's also multi-hit. That's who you want Gambler on. Or people that are doing a ton of extra basic attacks, like a Theraval, or someone like that. But that's kind of where you want to go with Gambler. Like, I have my Gambler on Dristo Erden because he hits 6 times on his ultimate. I have Gambler on Sheena for Vortex because she hits 5 times on her ultimate. Or more than that, actually. Wait, Sheena, I'm thinking of, hold on. Sheena hits, like, insane. It's 12? 12 times. Sheena hits 12 times on her ultimate, just saying, because for 6 seconds, she hits every 0.5 seconds. So, yeah, she hits 12 times. So Gambler's pretty perfect for Sheena for extra damage. When it comes to the Season 1 sets, there is the Troll set. That was I think that was the skill haste plus attack, but then you also heal yourself. So that was kind of the lifesteal set for the damage dealers. And then there was the different Enlightenment set for that, which was the one we had Platinum Knight. That had a big damage bonus for your ultimate. So anyone that had a big ultimate damage, like Filto, even, was great for Platinum Knight because of that. And then, are we forgetting one more set? Executioner was the name. Executioner ignored defense. So that was just simple, great, extra damage set. I kind of used that on everybody when I didn't feel they fit something else. So those sets were different for Season 1. But that's kind of the go-to is Gambler for the heroes that have a lot of multi-hits because they'll have more chances to proc the true damage. But I'm really, really loving the Inventor's inspiration for anyone like, again, that comes back to their battle skill often because they have an ultimate boost that gets them there. Like maybe Oster could even be good for this as well. But also the Ice Blast. We gotta call out that Ice Blast. Really, really strong. You also might be using some of these other sets on people too. Like, that when you need accuracy for someone, you might need to use an accuracy set, obviously. So it helps to give you accuracy. Holy Hunter is our stun set. That's great on a damage dealer as well. So this was like a popular one for someone like Voresh, where I put it on my Dristo Erden as well when I pushed Pillar of Trial and Fae Meander. or it's great for arena. Everyone should have a stun set, a Holy Hunter set on their Voresh in arena. This is a good set for people that do damage but also need accuracy. And then you could let them have more utility by bringing in a stun. It's just really, really a fun set. Now let's take a look at artifacts. So when it comes to the DPS artifacts, I really don't think there's many strong ones that are worth getting early on as far as the legendaries go, as far as actual damage, unless you're lucky enough to get the exclusives. So like I had a dupe of a frost person and I really love my frost heroes, so I did get the Ring of Winter. Very, very good for those who do frost damage. Of course, the other ones are great too, like the other ring for wild heroes, or the new Blossom one for Ice Blast is really good if you want to use the dupe there. Those are the strong ones, or the obvious, the exclusive legendary artifacts for Flora, Loannis, etc. All of the derivative, or all of the exclusive heroes that have their own special artifacts. You want to get those artifacts if they have them. When it comes to epic artifacts, the best damage ones for ultimate's gonna be your eyeball, of course. And then our battle skill, we can get a ton of damage from the statue, from Manticore statue. I love this one. For those of us that don't have dupes, legendary dupes, to get the Ice Blast exclusive legendary artifact, I go with the statue because at least it's helping our battle skill do more damage, which our kits are way more about the battle skill than they are the ultimates for those heroes. But also you can get away with a little bit of quirky stuff. Let's see, actually talking about quirky, the Vile Ink is our derivative damage one. So Flora, Zorak, I think Avelios and Shalter are all very great with the Vile Ink. Some other heroes that just have strong passives can use Harpy's Nail, but if their passive has to do with derivative damage, you're going to get more out of them for Vile Ink if they are a hero that you're not building crit rate on, because this one makes it so you can no longer do crits. This is also great, the Goblet. Anyone that's just doing lots of hits, gives them extra attack speed for their basic attack, and then when they launch an ultimate, they have extra chance of gaining more crit rate, which is nice. So that's really helpful to help someone have a little bit easier to build kit when you're doing their ultimate. You know they're going to have extra crit rate. You don't have to build them with 100% crit rate. The music box is fun for anyone that is going to be in a team with shields, or if you have Garius and Gatekeeper, someone in a music box is probably a pretty smart choice because they're going to do a ton of extra damage just when they have a shield. And then if you're just trying to come back to your skills more often, we have the Incense Burner to come back to your ultimate faster. We have the Candle to come back to your battle skill faster. And of course, we have the Hourglass to come back to all your skills faster with 100 extra skill haste. Witch's Remains is the go-to #1 to get artifact. I say even still over the Hourglass 100%. You want to get Witch's Remains first. This allows you to be a debuffer as well. And this might go on your damage dealers sometimes. If you're doing a wild team, you're going to put this on Tunnel On because of her multi-hits. And if you're doing an Ice Blast team, you'll put this on Sheena because of her multi-hits. If you don't have the legendary version, you probably have the Crown of Unclean. If you don't, you should, because it's a very good artifact. There's some others as well. You can really get some good usage out of the Elven Quiver as well. It's just pure attack bonuses plus extra derivative damage that anyone can use. So it's a pretty strong artifact for the low-level stuff. Or even the disc, if you don't have the eyeball. Or for someone like an Usha that might be on the front lines as a melee damage dealer, you want a little bit of survivability, but then make sure their ultimate hits hard. This is a really good option for artifacts. Whew, okay guys, that was a long video. I hope that covered most of your questions, comments, concerns about the different heroes and different damage types. It's so much to go over. I wanted to make this a lot shorter, but it's kind of impossible when there's that many different types of heroes that do DPS to talk about. So this was our extended version, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video or live on Twitch.